The following program is being presented to you by a community producer. The statements, views, and opinions expressed are not necessarily those of ALC TV or the City of Avon Lake.
Hi, we are at the Avon Lake TV station and we are representing Creative Space Avon with the current black, white, and gray art gallery show that's going on in the library upstairs from now till April 27th. My name is Judy Keen and I own Creative Space Avon, and I've brought these three artisans with me today, and we're going to discuss their art and what they do with their art medium, and also talk about the art show up front. So the gallery show is going to be open during the library hours during the whole month of April. It's free to come in and see it. The art is all for sale. We have 31 artists with over 70 pieces of art plus pottery upstairs. So please come and see the show, and you'll be really impressed with the different art mediums that we presented. The first person I'm going to talk to today is Mr. Ken Long.
Hello.
And hi, Ken. And Ken brought his tree black and white image here. I'm going to let you tell us the title of it, and
Okay.
Go ahead and start us off.
Okay, thank you, Judy. Yeah, this image is called Tree in Black and White, and it is digital art. It's digital photography. It's based on a photograph I took down in Amish country off a country road there. And what I do basically, what I do with this photograph is I use neural net software, which combines the original image with a second image. In this case, it was a picture of a ball of twine. It basically, the neural software it does is it combines the two, and then you adjust it, you edit it. This originally was it had a lot of brown in it, but then I basically desaturated it so that it turned out basically black and white.
So Ken, when you photographed this tree to begin with, did you have in your mind that it was going to be a black and white image, or did you look at it with color as well?
I first looked at it in color. It was a color photograph. But once I started looking at it, it was really the shape that intrigued me about it. And so I thought stripping away the color really brought out the image, and it brought out the shape.
Give you some different layers, etc.
Right.
With it. With your type of camera equipment, is there any technical things that you use that are different than anybody else? I mean, do you ever take a shot like this with a cell phone, or are you a Canon or a Nikon guy, or you know?
It could be. I think this was a Canon. It was a power zoom, which is what I had on me. Basically, we were down in Amish country. We were going to Dear Dutchman and visiting some cold shops and so on. We're going down the street, and I said, wow, look at that tree. That's a pretty cool tree. So I pulled over to the side, and there happened to be a parking lot next to it, and I took some quick shots of it. And for the type of photography I use, really high-end equipment isn't needed because you do so much processing. A lot of that would be lost along the way.
So how long have you been doing this style of photography?
About 10 years. It really started with when digital photography came out. I liked it a couple of reasons. One, it was inexpensive because you don't have to get prints made. Two, it's easy to edit on your computer. And three, it's easy to share with people as well. So that's how I got started. I started taking images, and I would put them on Facebook, and I would get some comments from people. So that's really nice, and that's basically, I got some positive feedback, and so I got more involved based on that.
So would you say your methods are self-taught, or is there other photographers out there that you use for support, that you look at how they're doing things, as influence?
Well, certainly. What I was doing is basically self-taught. There's a lot of artists out there I admire. Most of them, if not all of them, are much more technically astute than I am. But I really look at the image kind of for the emotion it gives you, for the feeling, and I think a lot of that you can get just with more basic equipment. And then if you process it, you can bring out the elements of the image that intrigue you.
I know I met you years ago, I think at Lakewood Art Festival, probably, and most of your images tend to be nature type items,
Right.
leaves, water, drops, trees,
Right.
that type of thing. Is there a specific subject matter that you like to photograph?
Nature, I enjoy photographing. Trees, I love photographing. Quote Marie Kondo, it sparks joy.
Okay.
I basically like trees. I like them usually without the leaf cover because you can basically see the skeletal
Okay,
shape
so
of the
you
tree.
will look at photographing 4 seasons then, with your trees?
For 4 seasons?
Yeah, of spring, summer, winter, fall, of looking at a tree at the 4
I
different
do.
states?
I do. There's actually one tree in a park close to where I live, and I visit that and photograph it often, and I try different things with the images, and I come up with some interesting things that way.
Well, that's cool. So what is something that you want to challenge yourself in the next couple of years of doing? Is like, do you have a dream of something you want to do with your photography?
We'll get better at it. Basically, I think I have a lot of room to improve. Also, there's new software tools that are out there. With artificial intelligence, there's lots of things you can do. Something called text to image, where you actually input words and it'll spit out a piece of artwork. I've tried that. It gets some interesting results. I don't think of it as being my art, though. It's really the computer doing it. So when I've used it, usually there's a way to input an image and then have artificial intelligence adjust the image. So I've done some of that, and I really enjoy doing that. But I'm not very good at it yet, so I haven't tried to show
So you're
any of the
challenging
other things.
yourself, huh?
Yes.
Well, I think this is a beautiful image. I had a surprise for Mr. Ken when he walked in. He didn't know this, but it already sold because I bought it. But he told me he will reproduce another piece and bring it in for the show. So somebody else in the public will also have the opportunity of purchasing this. Yes. But I'm going to make sure I have him sign it and maybe have number 1 on it. I don't know.
Okay, happy to do that. Thanks, Judy.
But thank you very much for being here and sharing your talent. It's very creative. I think black and white is something that gives an artist, no matter what your art medium is, a different way of looking at shading, etc., and it really punches color. You don't think of black and white as color, but it really is. So I think you've done an excellent job because I get to take it home. So we now have Marina Neyman. Marina has this photo over here. So this is digital photography, correct?
Correct.
And this is going to be regular photography that is not digital, but it's not film, correct? Correct. And Marina is going to tell us about her painting and tell us the name of this. And we'll talk about your process, okay?
Thank you, Judy. I appreciate the opportunity to show my work. Judy, thank you for creating that wonderful opportunity for artists, for myself, to share my work with people. So this photograph is called Sewing Room, and it was taken in Akron at Stan Hewitt Hall. Generally, I have very few photographs of rooms or architecture. I much prefer portraiture, wildlife, landscapes, but this specific place is very dear to me for various reasons. So Stan Hewitt Hall is one of the largest, 6th largest mansion in the United States. It has a beautiful architecture built in 1912, 1915.
And beautiful grounds.
And grounds and gardens were designed by very accomplished architect who designed gardens. But the home was built by a gentleman who started a Goodyear company. And Goodyear is a company that started vulcanizing rubber. So Akron became really a capital of rubber industry because of his efforts. And I am by training and education a chemist. So that part of it is very interesting to me. the other part, so Akron became a capital of rubber industry. As a professional in the United States, my work in chemical engineering was involved in taking care and looking at environmental issues related to tires, which were used and created a tremendous environmental problem. So that was kind of interesting.
Oh, wow.
The other part that became very interesting, I mean, it's a beautiful home and I love to travel, and the opulence and gorgeous artwork speaks to me, but the smaller rooms where servants and help lived is really not much attended. You come to the mansion and usually I have those rooms to myself. Very little is known about those people who made that beautiful home shine. Between 16 and 32 people lived in that home, in that mansion, providing chauffeur. They had horses, they had gardeners, they had greenhouse, then had ladies' maid. They had so many people who made that incredible home shine. And when I walk into that sewing room, I had a lot of feelings and emotions about that unknown person who probably spent long hours doing work very little appreciated. If you look at a lot of historical writing about that mansion, there's hardly anything known about those people.
About the service.
Most of them were immigrants. Well, I just happened to be one who came here to this country and had a very difficult, challenging beginning. So that also kind of speaks to me. The other very interesting part, and that's why I kind of tend to go to that place, and I have a membership over and over again, is that my family came to Akron at the beginning of last century. And I'm just thinking, maybe some of them did some work providing help and services for that incredible home. I also liked the looks of the room, the quiet life. It was a light, it was a rainy day, and rain is a photographer's friend. It gives that very soft light. And
Well, this is an unusual shot because I don't normally see you doing indoor shots.
hardly
You're usually
any.
doing nature shots.
You're correct, hardly any. But this specific room and those closets and the area where working people,
You felt the
Spend their
spirit of
life.
the you felt the spirit of the house, it sounds like.
that's correct. So that's a story behind that photograph, and hopefully I was able to capture the mood. And I like the shapes of the sewing machine, the windows, and the only decoration, which was very modest, but it was still there, a little flower.
And so if you look at this, it's almost like a representation of a still life. The
It
sewing
is.
machine could be your vase with flowers. You know, so I think you captured the light very well with this, with the window treatment, etc. Can you tell us when you started working doing photography, and what is your number one love as far as an image of what you like to photograph?
Well, among all the artists, I'm a young photographer, young meaning that I picked up camera and started seriously doing photography, working on photography when I retired from my work in chemical engineering. I wanted to do it right, so I became a student at Tri-C, and I took a lot of classes and followed examples of many interesting photographers and learned. I have a digital camera, I have several lenses, and as far as my interest, almost equal opportunity shooter. I'm still kind of trying to develop my unique style or area of interest. But if I have to choose one, I would say wildlife and portraiture, because I think to me it's really unique every time. If you take a landscape, especially at the place where you live, it's very difficult to bring out something new, unusual. I mean, people visit, and maybe light is different, and maybe flowers bloom or they are dying, but it's still the same landscape. If you take a picture of a bird or an animal or a person, there's no repetition, and I end up with a unique image every time. And I hope as I get better, I will learn how to capture that unique look and show the character.
Well, I know that I've known you for a number of years. I've had the pleasure of being able to showcase beautiful orchids and floral pieces that you've done. Your wildlife photography just won an award a couple weeks ago at Creative Space. And I think that having the variety that you have in the Cleveland area in the North Coast, you've got many places that you can go and be inspired. So I really appreciate you being part of this show and enjoyed having you in the black and white show as well. So thank you.
Thank you for having me, Judy.
Thank you. We have Miss Jean, and she is going to talk to us about her buffalo image up here. And Jean comes from Port Clinton area?
Yeah, originally from Lorraine.
Yes, and this is the first time that we've had her involved at Creative Space Avon Gallery shows. She was in the recent Creative Women show. Both her and Marina were in the shows. And they both were award winners at the Creative Women shows. So we haven't announced the awards yet for the black and white show. We'll see if they get one here as well. But Jean's going to tell us about her bison picture up here and talk about her creativity.
This one is titled Spring Shed. I got the image. I actually travel extensively out west, and but this image is actually from a photographer, and his name is Michael Mars, and he does wildlife. I've been to Yellowstone once. He goes like once a week. And he knows I have this love of bison. I'm all about, my art is all about texture. I was a painter. My undergrad was in painting, drawing, and printmaking, but I was a life studies painter, and I always did people with not very much texture. And about 6 years ago, I kind of broke down. I teach studio art and photography and digital, and I kind of flipped it and went backwards. And my images are just really raw. They're made from a pen and ink. I don't use charcoal. That's the only basic one. I use liquid graphite, regular graphite. I paint with graphite. I take crushed graphite from like mechanical industry, and I mix it with different things, and I paint it on there. And I just love animals that have texture, and the bison is one of my favorites. I have it right here. And this was when he was shedding, and that's why he's got 3 cowbirds. A lot of people don't really notice it. And my images are all filled with secrets, I can say. This one has a whole bunch in it. But a lot of people...
You want to share where your signature is? Because I know you said you signed your signature.
It's probably in there about 30 times. When I draw, this is actually an HMP, which is called a hand-modified print. The original of this is life-size, so it's the size of a bison. And it's a lot easier to fit stuff in when it's bigger. So what I do is I hand print all of these, and then once they're printed, I draw on them again. So every one is a little bit different. Everyone is kind of its own original. And this one, I Know My Name, is up in the hair. I have a tendency to do family members. That's how, even though my work looks realistic, a lot of people think like, oh, it's a photograph. If you get up close, it's kind of anything but. I'm like, so what I do is, so you're photographers, and so when I do my images, and this person, you take so many images, and I just really zone in on one moment. So this was like one moment in this bison's life, and I like to magnify that, the importance of a moment. And even though there's a lot of bison, a lot more now than there used to be, everyone is different. Like the differences in things that, like, we're all people, but we have these differences, and they're a little more subtle in animals, but to me they like stick out.
Do you ever feel like when you're photographing an animal for your subjects that you get the spirit of the animal by looking in their eyes, that you feel like they bond with you?
I always do the eyes first.
Yeah.
I talk to a lot of artists that I do the eyes first because I link to them. And this bison, even though this is not my photograph, I referenced about 30 of mine because I have this one out in the Badlands in South Dakota that we are best friends. He doesn't really know it, but I actually I get very close to him.
Yeah.
Like physically, I could have reached out and touched him. I didn't pet the fluffy cow. But those are his eyes in there, and my name is in there. It's circled around like the.
So you feel the spirit of the animal when you're drawing them. Yeah. So when you're creating a piece, you may be taking a photograph on the West and then coming to Port Clinton, Ohio, and painting.
Right. Yes.
Do you turn on certain music to let you get in the feel of things that type of thing?
I listen to books a lot when I listen to novels and biographies. This was Viola Davis. That's what I think of. I listen to her biography or autobiography. But yes, I have a playlist. I'm on Spotify. It's called Draw to Me, and it has about 900 songs, so I don't really hear the same ones over and over. But yeah, so the original of this is about 200 hours, I would say it probably was. I try to go by days.
So I know I'm watching right now on your site of an image that you're working on right now. When you work on a painting, are you just working on one, or are you possibly working on 2 or 3 different images?
Well, I used to do one to start to finish, but I don't do that anymore. I was just talking to somebody about that today. I even made like a TikTok that's kind of humorous where I just framed a piece, and it's an original and it's huge, and the caption is like me rationalizing starting a new one when I have 4 on my drawing board. So like the train of thought, like when you make work, like you want to keep that train. It used to be really important to me. And then for some other reason of life, it would go away and I would come back and it was a different frame of mind. And I would be like, oh no, it's not the same. Well, now I kind of embrace that. I kind of get to a point. I always do the eyes first, so we're linked. And then I kind of leave them. So right now, I have 4 that I'm kind of experimenting with background images now. I'm trying to juxtapose man-made straight lines and angles next to the organic. And so in those, it looks digital, but it's all me with a T-square. And I have images in the backgrounds.
Well, I know that most of your clientele, from what you told me, was on the West Coast. I assume that you're reproducing your work to large sizes. You're doing custom work to the customer's needs.
Yes.
Do you find that your number one love is animals, or is there other things that you like to draw?
Well, I was a life studies major, so I did people. And I have one of those great majors. So I have an undergrad in fine arts and a minor in animal science and art history. I was a zoology major. So it took me, that was like 30 years ago, it took me all these years to go, wait, let's put them together. So when I started some pieces that I had in the last show, I actually find models just off the street. I just find them interesting and ask them about themselves. And then I combine them with animals. But the last couple years, I felt like I had developed painting people for so many years, and I really hadn't. So the last couple years, I've really been concentrating on the animals, and now I'm kind of I'm going back. I'm going back to the people again, and I've thrown a little bit of. I'm a fan of plants, so
So if you were going to dream and say, this would be my ideal image of what I want to be looking at 4 years from now, what I'm doing, where do you see yourself going with your art?
More complicated images, which I know it's kind of a little much already, but larger. my largest one to this point is about 6 foot, and I just really literally like to dive into that. But the background has always been, they were so complicated that I would leave them. But
So you're going to challenge yourself with some
I really like
background.
like things. I follow a lot of artists, and all their work is like busy and interesting to me, and I like simple dark shapes against I just like it all going on and the stories that they tell. And like everybody else, I don't know if everybody admits it, but my work is all autobiographical. It's
personal.
It's a bison, but like the way that bison and I, the way we interacted, the things I was going through in my life when I saw the bison. So when I do bison and bears, it's self-portraits.
It's very spiritual for you.
That's what I think of, yes.
Well, thank you for sharing. And I love that I don't honestly remember how we reached out, whether I reached out to you or you reached out to me, but we found each other through social media.
Yeah.
And I was thrilled when we made this connection. So welcome to Create a Space.
Thank you. I know, I actually have never, I do everything out west, so this is really nice.
Yeah, it's been a pleasure meeting you and having you part of the gallery space. At this time, what I want to do is I want to ask each artist a question. And this is really about our future artists out there. Sometimes we have to stop and think that we should, as artists, be giving back. And my feeling is that I would like to know if you had somebody that was a freshman in college and they wanted to look at photography, what would you want to tell them now that you didn't know when you started that you'd like to give them as an incentive or something to do that you didn't do? Can you think of that? Does somebody want to hop on that?
I do it every day.
Okay.
I teach secondary studio art, so I teach painting, drawing, and ceramics. And I have some banner students. All my students are great, but they're really, I think one thing about art, at least in high school and early college, is a lot of people don't take it seriously. They think, it's fun or it's a hobby, and it's fine that it is, but I talk to my students about that drive within you. I feel like there's this drive to create. It's what separates us from every other animal or every other creature, that we have this purpose. And what I tell them is to know your why, which that's kind of a big thing now, everybody's why, and do with that why, you can do anything. You can do art, you can be a chemist, you can do anything, but to do it, I think the jump and
not be afraid to just go ahead
and
and
if
go
you, I feel, especially with art, my advice for young people, if you take your art seriously, other people will take your art seriously. It's how much validation you give it.
Respecting yourself.
It's absolutely. If I started this, a student gave me some pens. I wasn't even using pens. I was an oil painter. And he was graduating, and he goes, I have all these pens in my locker. I would love to see what you would do with them. And that's literally how I started. I was like, well, challenge accepted.
Cool.
Yeah, Tommy. Thank you, Tommy.
Yeah.
But,
what about yourself, Marina? Can you think of something you'd want to tell a young photographer?
Yeah. Obviously, I didn't start as a photographer. I never considered that. And even if I did when I was growing up, it would have been it wouldn't have been a practical decision. And I don't think my parents, who always supported me in everything I did, would have liked that, because one needs to make a living. And what I found out later on when I picked up photography is that if you really, really have your heart in it, then you can make that work. And people who do what they like and what they love can really, even at the beginning, it's hard for everyone, but you can really make it work. And following your dream is very important.
Well, thank you.
So I'm glad I'm able to do that later on in life.
Yeah. What about yourself, Ken?
Well, I think it's important to know that I don't think there's one such thing as an artist versus everybody else. I think everybody has the skills in them. If it's something you want to do, do what you like, do what you love, try it, and you can learn as you go along. You know.
Yeah, I think that Creative Space Avon's goal is to be able to help artisans showcase their art to the public in Lorain County, in Avon, Ohio. We've done over 35 art gallery shows. This is the third time we've done a black and white show. The very first show we did in 2015 was called Shades of Grey. And it was right when the Shades of Grey movie came out. So we were packed that night because everybody came to see what was going on at the gallery because of the movie. But it was a phenomenal show. Then in 2020, we came back with black and white with a spot of red. So the art would have been like Marina's photo, and then there might have been a vase on the desk with a red rose in it, and so you had 3 colors in the image. So with this show, we decided to do black, white, and gray. And I find that you can find a true artisan's talent when they understand shadows and shading, etc. Did you find that when I was curating the show and did the call for art, that it inspired you, or you were thrilled to do black and white versus color?
I do black and white
Yeah.
all the time.
Yeah.
So yeah, it inspired me. Yeah.
So it was right with you.
I
What
am a
about
black and white
yourselves?
artist.
I love black and white because I think, I mean, color is very nice, but sometimes it distracts, and black and white really shows the real thing, the shapes, the shadows, and forms, and that's what people concentrate on, and it's a lot more powerful very often.
That's true. And I think we have 70 pieces of art up in the gallery. Ken, you've seen some of the art. There's all different art mediums up there. You know, we've got large pieces, small pieces, there's pottery, there's glass, there's all different kinds of images. There's drawings, photographies, mixed media. So there's a very good variety that we're showing the public. So I hope that the people will come and see the show. This will be up till April 27th. As an artisan myself, I'm a stained glass artist, so I have a couple of fused glass pieces in the show upstairs. The event that we're having here goes till April 27th. I want to thank Shay Altmont for allowing us to come in to show the gallery show. I want to thank these 3 artisans for being part of this interview today. And congratulations and thank you to all of the 31 artisans that are in this show. We are going to be doing an open house on April 6th, which is a meet and greet. That night at 6:30 to 8, it's open to the public. We will be giving out the awards that night to the artisans that have won the awards. So I think with that, I think we've pretty well covered it, and I think everybody did a great job. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The preceding program was presented to you by a community producer. The statements, views, and opinions expressed were not necessarily those of ALC TV or the City of Avon Lake.